There have been some people who have meant a lot to me. And one that I have very fond memories of is John Jones, who was the first custodian. And he used to sit outside this door and listen to Dr. Lee. And I guess I was the first person who ever did any secretarial work. I was teaching school, and on Friday afternoons, I would come up here and mimeograph the bulletin for Sunday. And that was when we just had the sanctuary, and Dr. Lee's office was back off of the sanctuary. That's why the mimeograph machine was and why I would do the bulletin. And John would come on Saturday to be sure everything was just in place for Sunday. And he would come in. There was a door right outside the sanctuary where the window is now. And that's an interesting thing, too, that you could come in from Main Street to the sanctuary through that door. John would come through that door. Then he would knock on the door to Dr. Lee's office and say, "Miss Margaret, are you in there?" And I'd say yes. And he said, "I'm here, and I'm going to stay here till you leave. I don't want you here by yourself." He was a wonderful person. And he retired in 1971. So 71 was a stressful year for West Main, for the little staff that we had. But John was one that I really remember. He had been custodian for 20 years. Another person who impressed me was Mamie Hall. She lived down the street from the church and lived across the street from me for 55 years after I married and had a family. A woman of means. She had a wonderful life. She had a good husband. They had wealth that people didn't know about, but they were so free to give and to share. And she taught the ladies' Sunday school class for years and years and years, when many times she was not physically able to do so. But I just saw the Jesus way in Mamie. The same that I had seen in my own mother, who loved Jesus and taught me that I needed to love him. And then there was a fellow by the name of Cager Meadows. He and his wife, Clara, never had any children of their own, but they could have claimed any child in West Main as their own. And Cager would take my boys in the back of his old rickety blue truck and take them on trips and take them to help him do errands. And my boys still, and to repair things, he could repair anything, even cutting a wire to electricity one night when he was up here working. But he was a wonderful person. He loved life. He loved this church, and he loved God. And he was very close to me. And then Dr. Lee and Margaret were in my formative years so much a help. My high school years, my college years. And he married Lee and I in this sanctuary. And he was so much help to me. And I just have to give him thanks. And then Mr. and Miss Carter had an indirect influence on me. Mrs. Carter outlived Mr. Carter, and she lived in a house back of the halls on West Main after Lee and I moved on West Main with our family. And I saw how Christ was seen in their lives and the life that they lived. And that was really, and Kirk was tremendous help. And so was Bruce, even in my older years. And Drew has been meaningful to me. Gary was a delight. He came in '84. He introduced us to the poinsettia Christmas tree. We had the first one in '85. He was all music, but he was many other things as well. He was a perfectionist. Everything had to be just so with Gary. He was a delight to work with. I was in the choir for all of those years with him, and I loved him deeply. And when he was stricken with Lou Gehrig's disease, I knew that if he lived long enough, he would suffer. But he called me one day and he said, "Margaret, I have been thinking I'm going to not be as well as I am now, but I want people to know what it's been like to deal with this disease, and I want it read at my death, at my service. Would you be willing to read it for me?" And I said, "If I'm living, Gary," I said, "you know, I'm a whole lot older than you." But I did outlive him, and he did. He suffered being immobile because he had been so active. But when I read that story of what he wrote, of his experience, no regret, no blame, thankful that God's asked him to experience it, and how much it meant to him to be able to suffer for Jesus, who suffered for all of us. Gary was a wonderful person, and his ministry here was absolutely wonderful. And he recorded videos on the organ, and it was played at Lee's service as the postlude, and at Russell Hines, both of them were requesting it. He had amazing musical skills, but he had more than an amazing heart that was filled with love for God. And his years with West Main were very great years. And one thing I want to say is from 1941 to 2025, this church has always been open to young people, especially young women, given every opportunity to lead. The first time I was nominated for deacon, I did not get the nomination. But the next year, I did get nominated. The church was ready. But the church has always been willing to accept women. Dr. Lee was so very helpful to me help me to know that I could do anything God called me to do if I were willing to listen to him and do it. And this church would approve it. We have one member of our church, a woman, Betty Pugh, who was ordained in this church. And she grew up, she feels the same way I do. Nell Collins back in the 40s felt the same way, and she went on to marry a minister and had an effective ministry with her husband. They're both now dead, but since the age of 13, I have felt apart, and that if that was something I was asked to do and I felt I could do it, I would. You ask about COVID. I was not able to experience COVID in the church because Lee was bedridden then at home, and I stayed at home on Sundays with him. We watched live stream, and interestingly enough, the associate pastor that at that time was Skylar Daniel, and Skylar found out how much I missed coming to church on Sunday. And so we made the initial contribution to get the live stream going for West Main. And it has been a real source of help to me. After Lee's death in 24, I had 2 compound fractured vertebrae in my back, and I could not sit long. So I couldn't get back to church to stay. They have healed and I am better. But I still find that to dress as I always did for Sunday service is a little bit more than I can handle at my age. So I watch the live stream. But Drew has been helpful to me with that too in coming. You know, West Main is not Margaret's church. I said it's God's church. And we need to be responsive to God. And I have been so blessed these 84 years to have been a part of this church family who have nurtured me. They've loved me. They still love me. They tell me they do. It has just been a wonderful experience to try and walk the Jesus way with fellow believers. And I talk to your mom every now and then, asking, Jennifer, tell me, how's the church doing? And she inspires me with her love for God and how she shares that love with so many people. And I have grown to love her as if she were my own child. She's a wonderful example, and you are blessed to have her as your mother. I still have a dream for West Main. That dream was when I was 13. I wanted to be part of a church that would build God's kingdom and that I would make a difference in the world in which I was living. I followed that vision as a public school teacher and a guidance counselor. And I have tried to follow it all of these years. I'm as imperfect as any other human being. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect mother. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect church member. But I have tried to do the best I know how to keep my eyes focused on Jesus. And I know if I do that He's going to look after me. There's a passage in the 46th chapter of Isaiah that has been my mantra. And I love Phillips' translation of that passage. And it says, I gave you birth. I created you. I've looked after you ever since you were born. I'm going to be your God through your life's journey, even when your hair turns white with age, because I made you and I'm going to take care of you. And that's what I would like to see the West Main family of faith become people who God created, and He's going to take care of them if they just keep their eyes on Him. I'm so grateful for the experience of sharing my little faith with all of these folks who have meant so much to me.